Today, I'll be giving you an overview of the game Lawyer Up. We'll be doing this while watching a full 2-player playthrough in time-lapse form. The game is designed for 2 players with an additional solo mode. On average, it will take you from 60 to 75 minutes to finish a game. Drama has ensued, and now it is to the courtroom, where players will take the role of either the noble prosecution or the steadfast defense. To begin, players will need to decide what case they want to play. The base game comes with 2 cases, Case 00, the art forgery trial, and Case 01, the murder trial. For the purpose of this overview, we'll be focusing on the art forgery trial, as that is the more introductory case to help you get used to the base mechanics of the game and to get used to the base decks of both the prosecution and defense side. Whereas the art forgery trial will add some asymmetry to both sides. Players will now need to choose what strategy they will be using. In the art forgery trial, the strategy dictates whether you'll be playing a short, normal, or long-length game. It will also dictate what key witnesses you will need to bring to the stand, and it will also determine what cards you will be playing with. Once this is determined, take all cards for that case and for the related strategy, shuffle them together, and these will form your case deck. Put those in the middle of the table. We are now in the discovery phase of the game. This is a pre-trial phase of the game where players will be drafting evidence to help their side during the main trial. Each player will draw 3 cards, and simultaneously they will place 1 card into their deck, 1 card into their opponent's deck, and 1 card into the buried evidence deck. This will continue until there are no cards remaining in the middle of the table. Once that's done, take the cards that were drafted for you, add them to your base prosecution or base defense deck, shuffle them together, and then this will now form your case deck for the game. Now we entered the trial phase of the game. Players will be calling key witnesses to the stand to testify, and they will be taking turns examining those key witnesses. Whoever has the judge's favor, at the beginning of the game it's the prosecution, will call the first witness. The first witness will come to the stand, and then players will take turns examining that witness. When examining a witness, players will need to make sure that their legal arguments make sense by chaining together cards that have at least 1 matching bias symbol. The bias symbol can be found on the top of the cards. When matching bias, players only need to match the bias symbol on the top card in their examination. This being said, players can only take 1 action per turn. These actions include playing a card into your examination. These can be arguments, evidence, or courtroom procedure cards. Another action players can do is preparing a courtroom procedure. These are in a separate pile next to the examination, and these must be prepared ahead of time before actually being played. They are more powerful cards. Another action a player can do is activate an already prepared courtroom procedure. Typically, this requires having the judge's favor. Players can also choose to use their sidebar. That will allow them to gain the judge's favor and add an additional card to their hand. Or if the player doesn't want to do any of these, they can decide to pass. In addition to these actions, once per witness, players may object to any argument played by their opponent as long as they have an unexhausted objection token. When a player objects, their opponent's card is immediately discarded with no effect, and their opponent must take another action. All of this occurs until both players decide to pass. Once both players have decided to pass, it is now time to resolve the witness. To resolve the witness, you will need to compare the influence that each player has generated on their side of the examination. Whoever has the highest influence will then win that witness. Victory effects on the witness and victory or defeat effects on the top card of each player's examination must now be resolved. Next, the player who won the witness subtracts their influence from the total influence of their opponent. The player who won then spends that difference to sway bias on the jury. To sway a bias on a juror 1 space towards a player's side, they must spend influence equal to that juror's skepticism. Afterwards, players take all cards in their examinations and discard them. If a player had any procedures prepared, but they did not activate it that round, they may stay in their prepared procedures area. The player who won the witness claims it and places it in their claimed witness area. The player who lost the witness gains the judge's favor, refreshes their sidebar token, and then both players reset their influence to 0. Players may now discard any number of cards that still remain in their hand and then draw up to 5 cards. Now we are ready to call up the next witness. When all key witnesses have been called and resolved, the game proceeds to closing statements before the game ends and a winner is determined. In the art forgery case, the game ends after all key witnesses have been called and resolved, or if at the end of a round, either player has no cards remaining in their deck. The player with the majority of jurors swayed to their side wins. If there is a tie, the player with the most claimed witnesses wins. If that is also a tie, it's a hung jury and the defense wins. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Lawyer Up in a nutshell. Hope it helped you out and hope you enjoyed the overview. If you're interested in seeing more time-lapse overview of games, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you're interested in Lawyer Up and you'd like to see a more real-time explanation of how all of this works, check out my upcoming video, How to Set Up Lawyer Up. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, so long, farewell.